Everything is fueled from me wanting to be a better person on earth.
It's time to do your part.
All right, everybody. Still on the road. I'm in Pasadena now, joined with Mr. Eric Nies. If you don't know who he is, you should. But after the podcast, Google him. I'm stoked. I've followed this guy's career since I was a teen.
Yeah.
And now here you are sitting in Kathleen's living room. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks for letting us use your house. So I asked you to do this, and you were totally open to it. And so why?
Just because I like to say yes. And when the universe throws something my way, I always feel that there's something to learn from everything. And also to share information that could be helpful for somebody else's evolution.
I've followed you on Facebook, and I see that you kind of emulate spirituality and kind of serenity. There's a lot of words I could use to describe you. Yeah, it's true. And so that's a big part of why I asked you to be here today, was just to kind of share, A, what it's like to be you, and B, how you got to this point of just kind of what seems to be bliss.
We have an hour?
We have an hour, dude. Yeah, so choose your words wisely.
Okay. I guess start at the beginning, right?
Yeah,
I grew up in New Jersey and on the Jersey Shore. And then when I was 18, I went to New York to model because I needed a job and I needed to make some money. School wasn't happening for me and sports were finished. And then not long after that, The Real World happened. So I was casted onto The Real World, MTV, which was the very first reality TV show in America or in the world.
I was going to say ever. You guys were kind of the pioneers of this.
Yeah, exactly. We're actually in the Television Hall of Fame.
As you should be.
As the pioneers of reality TV. And then shortly after that, I was casted for The Grind, which was a half-hour dance show on MTV, which had 90 million viewers around the world.
I was one of them.
And awesome. And then from The Grind, I did The Grind workout videos. And then I came out to LA, and I was going to continue to look into the entertainment industry, get into acting and hosting, and continue to do all of that. And this manager came into my life at that time, and I gave him power of attorney over my career. I thought that I could trust him. And after 6 months of brainwashing and manipulation and controlling and actually being molested, I lost my job. He stole over $300,000 from me. And I was at a point of, I felt no return, no way out, and contemplated suicide.
Because the whole house of cards just fell.
Everything fell. I had the biggest studios in Hollywood after me.
You were, I mean, huge.
Huge. Yep.
And so this one dude single-handedly just popped the balloon.
Yes, and what I wouldn't realize many years later in the jungles of Peru while doing ayahuasca, that if that guy didn't come into my life and do that to me and shake me up, that I would have died.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, like, regret, revenge, did you find peace with this dude? And so what I'm hearing is that this needed to happen.
It not only did it need to happen, but like I said, he literally saved my life because I was on a path of self-destruction, because what I didn't understand then was that I was suppressing a lot of emotion from the traumas in my childhood, and the entertainment industry and the money and the fame and all of that was really adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
And I needed to be stopped. And I didn't realize or understand that then. I mean, that's just the environment that I grew up in as a child. All my friends were partying. We would go to New York City, like 20, 25 of us, and everybody's doing the same exact thing. So it just seemed normal to me.
Well, and then now you're famous, so everybody knows you. So then it's even like times 10.
Times 1,000.
Right,
It was so intense.
Right. So this is interesting because I almost feel like it was inevitable if it was him or somebody else, this balloon was going to pop.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, what I would find out later was we were talking about earlier is like understanding ancestral lineage programming, and understanding that I attracted certain things in my life for the sole purpose to remind me of what I needed to heal from my past. And with the work that I do now, that I've been doing for the last 17 years, I'm a spiritual guide. I facilitate people in many different ways to help them to process physical, emotional, and spiritual and mental dis-ease.
You said that you said dis-ease differently than we normally would hear that word said.
Yes, because in my own personal experience with what I've gone through, I understand that all physical diseases I call dis-ease because there is the lack of ease in the body, and that all comes from emotion. It's all connected to emotion, and I can speak to that because of what I personally experienced through Vipassana meditation and over 100 ayahuasca ceremonies and over 60 mushroom journeys. I've been working with plant medicines for about 10 years now.
For people that don't know much about plant medicines and they kind of just have only know the stigmas, talk about like the benefits of it and talk a bit about the history of it, right? Yeah,
so the history of it, each plant medicine, so there's many different plant medicines that come from different tribes from around the world. The feminine master or grandmother plant medicine that people are mostly aware of is ayahuasca. The masculine master plant energy or spirit is iboga. That comes from Africa.
Okay.
Ayahuasca is South America. Then you have peyote and mushrooms, which is Mexico and North America. And the indigenous people had a profound relationship with nature and with these master plant teachers, and they utilized them to assist them in healing traumas and things from their past, but also helping them to have insight of the future and assist the soul in evolving. And so these plant medicines have DMT in them, which is dimethyltryptamine. And when we're born and when we die, our brain is actually covered with DMT. That's why people who have near-death experiences and they see the light in a tunnel is because of the DMT that's flooding over their brain. So DMT is everywhere. We actually naturally produce DMT in our bodies, but DMT is in the grass. There's just different plants that have higher levels of DMT. So when you ingest DMT and that covers the brain, the DMT helps to open up portals or bridges to not only the spirit world, but also to your subconscious brain. And so the way I like to explain an ayahuasca ceremony to people, it's like this wise old grandmother that really loves you jumps in your head and gets behind a control board. And to the right of her, there's a filing cabinet of all the experiences that you've had in your life. And if we want to get to the root cause of some type of suffering that you're having in your life, with depression, anxiety, or whatever it is, there's the root cause of that. And so there's layers of experiences and vibrations and frequencies and emotions that pile up on the root cause that you attract into your life over the years. So when you drink the ayahuasca and you go into these experiences, the grandmother is sitting behind the control board and she goes into your filing cabinet and says, okay, we're going to work on this. Boom. This is why you have anxiety and depression around this, because this happened to you with your father when you were 8 years old, and you are suppressing those emotions. You haven't forgiven him. You haven't forgiven yourself. You're carrying around guilt and shame and whatever it is. And so this is why. So she helps you to shine light on the trauma. Now you understand why. So then after the ceremonies, you can do the real work and you can start to address those issues in your life. And that's the case with all the other plant medicines. If done correctly with intention and facilitated and guided by a shaman or a medicine man or woman that is in integrity.
Which is what you do.
That is what, yes.
In part what you do.
Yes.
Wow. Chelsea Handler, Joe Rogan, there's a lot of celebrities. You can obviously Google Gwyneth Paltrow that have done a lot of studies on this. Mm-hmm. Tell me about, as far as naysayers, people that are more reliant on Western medicine, how do you sell this to them, right?
Well, you have to be ready for it. And there has to be something that kind of gets triggered inside of you to be interested in it. It's the old saying, you can't force the horse to drink the water. You can bring it to the water, but you can't force it. So there's a lot of people that come into my radar and that are looking for healing, and I'll mention this to them, and some of them are ready, some of them aren't, some of them are skeptical, and I say, listen, I give them an explanation of what it is. I give them kind of an intro to the spirit of the plant, and then I say, just go home and sit with it. Be mindful of if you're being judgmental. Be mindful if there's some type of fear or judgment that comes up around it, and just ask whatever it is that you believe in. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in the Great Spirit? Do you believe in Source, angels, your ancestors, somebody that passed, whoever it is that you kind of look to for guidance, and ask for the information to be revealed, and you will know when you're ready, because you will be called to it. And that happens 9 times out of 10.
And that's again the importance of kind of staying open and understanding the connection with the universe that we all have if you are aware of it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of conservative listeners, so I think that like sometimes when they hear words like universe or connection or things like that,
right,
we don't lose them, but that's when they start there's a block for a lot of people. They're not open to it. I know for my journey, once I began to be open to it is when as you and I were speaking about earlier, the floodgates just opened.
Right.
And there's just infinite examples as to how it's benefited my life in such a beautiful way.
Yes.
All right. So pick back up a little bit from so you had some issues with your manager, then you kind of hit a wall, and then this is where the work began. Tell us a bit more about your journey through the work.
Okay. Yeah. So I was at rock bottom. I knew that I needed help. My brother, who met 4 years prior to this, a 8th generation Vietnamese grandmaster. He was a 21 Den black belt in 3 different martial arts, the Grandmaster of the Sword, Grandmaster of the I Ching, Feng Shui.
Jeez.
His mother was the queen of the mountain people in the 70s or 60s or 70s when the communists came in, and they basically took his empire away from him.
It sounds like a movie.
Yeah. His name was Grandmaster Makdam, and he lived in Los Gatos, California. He passed away about 7 months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And so I went to see him, and the 4 days that I was there, he did what was called a vibrational reading on me. We put his fingers on my pulse, and he said to me, if you don't change your ways, within 10 years, you're going to develop a blood clot and you're going to die. And he obviously put the fear of God in me, and I was like, oh, I better do something about this. So he gave me a box of herbs, and he said, go home with these herbs, take all these herbs, and in 3 months, if you want me to train you, just come back. Don't call, just show up. And so I knew that I needed help. And so that's what I did. I went home.
Did you know that you needed that kind of help, or you were just open?
I was just open. I knew that I needed something. Well, really what happened was on the 4th day when we were leaving with all these herbs, we were in the car pulling out of the driveway, and I just started crying. I can actually feel it now because I'm so tuned in to him and to my experiences. But I knew in my heart I was home. There was a feeling that I had in my body when I was pulling away. My brother was like, why are you crying? And I go, I don't know, like I feel like this is home for me. And that's what brought me back to him.
There could not have been a clearer sign.
No. And that's happened throughout the years. Like when I had the experience with the manager and I was ready to take my life, I was literally standing on the side of the Hudson River looking at the MTV Viacom building with my grandfather's knife on my wrist, ready to take my life. And in this split second, this cloud came down the river. It caught my attention, and I looked at the cloud and I heard this voice in my head just say, just go home. Just go home. Because I was at this place of no way out. I didn't know what to do. Everything was crumbling around me. I was losing everything. And with that little voice, I walked back to my apartment and packed up my things, and then I just went home. So these things have kind of happened to me over the years since I was little. And just opened
you up every time more and more.
More and more and more and more, yeah.
All right, so go on.
So I lived with the Grandmaster off and on for 6 years of my life while I had a loft in New York City and my own entertainment company and a recording studio. And I love house music, as we were talking earlier. I'm a house head.
Okay.
Yeah. So I used to spend 4 nights a week in a club in New York. And so I love house music. So we started this little independent house label, and I created this exercise device and lived in Manhattan for 5 years in this loft, going back and forth and training with him.
So you're an inventor too. You created an exercise device.
Yeah, it was called the Apparatus. I did it with my brother.
Cool.
Yeah.
And your dance background, this is all just natural talent, right?
Yeah, just freestyle.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not technically trained. Right?
Okay, so go on.
So while I was living with the Grandmaster, he started to share more and more with me about who I am, why we have a relationship, and what I'm here to do on this planet.
And
so
you weren't suspect through any of this.
Of course I was. But I brought everybody there, all my friends, all my family. They all know Grandmaster. Everybody had their own personal experience with him. But he would do things like this. So I started to bring people there who needed help and healing. And this one woman came with her daughter who had an issue, and they stayed in a hotel not too far down the street. And one morning she came back, and I said, "Good morning." And she had this look on her face, and she said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Yeah, sure." She said, "Has he ever showed up in your room floating in a ball of light in some warrior garb?" And I went, "Yeah, he does that sometimes." And she goes, "I thought I was seeing things because last night I woke up and I looked up into the corner of my room and he was floating in the corner of the room smiling at me."
Are you kidding?
No. This is all true. Everybody knows it. I'm actually writing a book about it. And so this would happen with me, with him over the years. He would appear in front of me in my meditations. And my brother trained with him. My brother actually wrote a book called Live the Seven, and he has another book called Punt. But Live the Seven is about the training that we received from him. And my brother has been a personal trainer for 20 years, training people with the techniques that we learned from the Grandmaster.
What is the 7?
There's 7 disciplines to live your life by.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Go on.
Yeah, and so
I know there's a lot more.
So much. So I lived with him. He had his own personal issues.
I love that you led a bunch of people there.
I brought everybody there.
I mean, that there's so much in that.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody could be able to we all need just doors to walk into.
Yeah.
And you created that door.
Well, this was something really special. I mean, the house that I lived in, there were like 10,000 artifacts. The bed that I slept on was the king and queen's bed that was like 500 years old from, one of the dynasties in Vietnam. There were Buddhas that I lived with that were 2,000 years old. From like right after Buddha had his experiences and they started making statues about him, I was in a house with those artifacts. It was incredible.
You can't even find words to describe this guy.
No.
He's indescribable. This is amazing. All right.
Yeah, and I have photos, and a part of my book is one of the chapters, the Grandmaster chapter, is about other people sharing their own personal experience with Grandmaster, because I know that people are not going to believe my story. It's hard to believe.
And I'm glad that you reiterated that, because I think, again, talking about programming, we're programmed to be so flippant suspicious.
That's right.
Especially about stuff like this.
Yeah, and especially like the guy from The Real World and The Grind. We're supposed to believe him.
Well, but for me, I guess maybe it's generational, but that was one of the things I was most excited about, is I do believe you, just because I feel, maybe I'm being a little silly, but you were reputable to me.
Right.
Just from knowing a bit about your background. I was like, you know what? I want to hear what this guy has to say. He seems like a trusted source.
Right.
For real.
Yeah, well, people know my story.
Yeah, and they know your face and name.
That's right.
You know?
I have nothing to hide. I'm an open book. I am completely and totally transparent and fully vulnerable when it comes to the experiences that I've had in my life.
What has been your biggest fear in your whole life? Like, get vulnerable. What's been the biggest fear?
The biggest fear probably for me was sharing about my sexuality. Because when I was 8 years old, my very first sexual experience that I had was with a boy.
Oh.
And so because of the environment that I grew up in New Jersey, that was not something that I would talk about, especially around my friends, because immediately I would be judged. And, you know, I mean, maybe or maybe not, but I had the fear of being judged. I had the fear of being outcasted. And also there were feelings that I didn't really quite understand at such a young age. And then when I was 12 or 13 years old, I lost my virginity. I was raped by a woman.
Oh my God.
And so my innocence was taken away from me. And then in my early 20s, 22, was the brainwashing, the manipulation by a man who molested me. And, you know, not to go off into this area, but that was the very first time that I heard about like the very dark and evil controlling systems on the planet.
And Hollywood specifically.
Yeah, like the banking system and Hollywood and all that stuff, like secret society type things that go way, 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 way back. So I was educated in all of that when I was 22 years old. There was no internet, right? And so I was in the library reading books about all of this stuff. And so as I would go on through my life, and I would meet different people, different mentors, different teachers, I was naturally attracting men in my life who would take advantage of me, and also women. And that goes back to the healing that I would experience later on in my life to understand why I was attracting those things. And that would go into my past lives.
Because I was going to ask, well, why are you attracting those things? And,
Yes.
it goes back to past lives.
Yes. Probably going into maybe my 60th ayahuasca experiences. I've been in about 100 ayahuasca journeys.
And I want to get back to that, but not now. But I guess my question will be, you don't just do ayahuasca once. It's a long journey.
Yeah, no, because the tribe that I work with is called the Shipibo tribe of Peru, and they're considered the masters of ayahuasca. The lineage of ayahuasca, there's relics that go back 5,000 years to the Inca.
5,000 years.
Yes, 5,000 years.
And one thing I do a lot, especially in interviews, is I interrupt and I jump around.
That's fine.
But like if you were to have like a Cymbalta or a Zoloft and ayahuasca, it's a no-brainer.
It's not even worth having a conversation about it.
But
but you have to, because of the programming, and this goes back to the programming, which we can get into a little bit.
I didn't know what the takeaway would be with meeting you today, but I want the biggest takeaway to be for people that this is the way to go.
Well, there's a number of different ways to go, and I have tried them all. I have a lot of experience with understanding how to liberate the soul from suffering. And that's what I do with people.
And that's all we want.
That's all we want. That's all we're here to do. And there are instructions that were left behind by a couple of individuals that their names have lasted throughout the ages. That's Buddha and Jesus. A lot of people follow them. But then there's also the indigenous.
I want those instructions.
The indigenous had a profound communion with nature. They have a relationship with the plant kingdom. And the Shipibo, who are considered the masters of ayahuasca, they don't only work with ayahuasca, they work with thousands of plants in the jungle. And all of these plants, they have a spirit, and you can communicate with the spirit. So when the Shipibo sit in ceremony and their vision opens up, they can see everything that's happening in the room, and they can actually communicate with the different plant spirits. The Shipibo believe that there's a plant for everything for people to heal. So when you work in the Shipibo tradition, say you have a lot of rage or anger that you're suppressing. Well, there's specific plants that help you with that. One of them is called Renakita. That's a plant that I dieted for about 8 months, where you completely alter and change your diet, and you create an environment in your body that is in harmony and resonates with the energy and the frequency of the plant, and the plant will assist you in sharing its knowledge with you to heal or to teach you. And the Shipibo have had this relationships with the plant kingdom for thousands of years. They're people.
Thousands of years, talking about lineage, talking about tying it all together and learning this process. So how does one learn it? You're talking about the this stuff that's been known for years, but for somebody like me, where do I start?
You have to experience it. The only way to truly understand something is by having an experience. One of the biggest misconceptions about the healing community or the self-help community is that, I'll go read a book that somebody wrote about self-help. But if you don't put those teachings into action, you're not going to get anything out of it. You have to put it into action. We're beings of action, of motion, emotion, energy in motion. So if you're not interacting with your emotions, if you aren't building a relationship with your emotions, what are you doing?
Yeah, what's the point?
And that's what we're seeing in the world right now. We see millions and millions of people disconnected from their emotions, suppressing their emotions, distracted from their emotions. Disconnected.
Talk about collective consciousness, right? Because as we all are connected, there is a lot of sad people around and people that are disconnected.
Yeah.
How does that correlate with us? Some of the people that do kind of get it, and is there healing happening?
Yes. Well, there's
universally.
Yeah, there is. There's a collective that's happening, because if I do the work, I'll give you an example. So we're just going to look within my own lineage, my immediate family, right? So because I took the initiative to go down this path, while I'm working in ceremony, I'm actually seeing and experiencing what I'm healing. And I've had experiences with my ayahuasca journeys, with my mushroom journeys, and in my Vipassana meditations, that it has been shown to me that because I've gone in and healed these parts of my own lineage, they then overflow into the rest of my family. And unconsciously, their behavior naturally just starts to change because I took the initiative. So I'll give you an example. My niece, she's 20 years old.
Okay, I'm thinking of my 20-year-old niece too.
Okay, so my 20-year-old niece was molested and raped when she was 6 years old. This story it's public, so for any of the listeners that are out there, you can come to my website. There's a video about it, and she's openly public about this because I've been working with her over the last year. And so I, as you know, have been through that. Molestation. It's within the lineage of my family, and it goes way back many lifetimes. So because I went through my own healing and transformation, and I understand how it works, I can then share that information with her so she can then heal. But
some of the information that's being shared is it's not even conscious.
That's right.
This is mind-blowing. This is head-splitting. It really is.
Yes.
Because for me, I feel it. I've done a lot of work on myself in the past 2 years. I will always continue to, and I'm starting to see the changes in my family, which is weird.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's weird because I love I don't want to be specific about people, but from my cousins to my sister to everybody, I love them all equally, but we've had a lot of issues and a lot of judgment. And
who hasn't?
You're right. But something's been changing, and that's weird.
Yeah, man. What's changing?
Well, there's more understanding, there's more patience, we're enjoying each other's company more. There's
who's changing?
It's me.
That's right. So then you become...
My energy's changing, though, because my behavior, maybe it is.
So how do we lead?
By
Gandhi, how do we lead? We lead by example. If you want to see a change in the world, change yourself.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson knew that.
Yeah.
Man in the mirror.
Yeah.
If you want to see change in the world, take a good look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, where do I need to change?
So for people that are listening, that resonates, right? That's an easy action.
Yes.
But then when we talk about the real change, there's this divide, right?
Yeah.
Maybe people are scared to do the work. I know for me, you waited years I knew I needed therapy. I knew I needed to face some demons. I just was hella scared.
They're scared of the feeling. They're scared.
Hold on. Let me think for a second. So not so much the result, it's the emotion that you're feeling going through it.
Correct.
Because the result itself isn't scary. I never thought about that.
Yes. So now we get to the inner child.
Okay.
This is what it's all about. And you might feel the energy just shift. If you can feel that, I think that you probably can because you've been getting chills the whole time. So now we're going to talk about the inner child, and everybody who's listening right now will also feel it.
Okay.
All right. The inner child is always there, from 1 year old to 10 years old to a teenager. It's always there. You can communicate with the inner child whenever you want. The inner child has all of the information, right? It remembers everything. The question is, does the inner child trust you with the information? And we see this in cases of children that have been abused, mostly sexually abused children. 33% of sexually abused children develop amnesia. They develop blocks. And they create aspects of themselves to control everything around them so that they don't have to feel that pain. Okay? This is what people are scared of. And it's an illusion. Fear is an illusion that the mind creates to protect the inner child from feeling painful emotions. That's why it's so challenging for people to transform and to heal. They don't even want to have the conversation. Soon as you start talking to them about mom or dad or whatever it is, they'll start to get emotional. Those emotions, they want to naturally rise. This is the understanding that Buddha had. Buddha had an understanding that if he sat quietly, patiently, diligently, equanimously, if you sit quietly and patiently in the eye of the storm of your own feelings, by the laws of nature, those emotions that are suppressed in your body will rise and dissolve.
And dissolve.
And dissolve back into the ether. Now, why? Because you're made up of air, fire, water, and earth. Those four elements are in harmony with each other. They resonate and vibrate at a certain frequency. When the mind gets involved and it starts to judge and be in fear of feeling those emotions, you then hold those emotions down. You suppress them into your body.
Because your subconscious fights you.
Correct. And it causes anxiety and depression.
Right. This inner child stuff is really, it's blown my mind, and it's really important.
It's what it's all about.
Right. And, through some of my therapy, I've learned about the inner child and kind of having conversations and learning how to protect your inner child and all of that stuff.
Yes.
Tell me about the word vulnerability and how all of this stuff connects to that, because that's a word that's trending now, and resonates with a lot of people.
So vulnerability basically is saying, I'm going to be completely and totally transparent with my story.
With me, not with necessarily
With me.
other people, with me.
This has nothing to do with anybody else. We love to make it about other people. We love to blame. We love to make excuses. We love to create stories in our lives to distract us from ourselves.
And ourselves, it's not that scary.
No, but you need to feel safe. The inner child needs to feel safe to process the emotions. And why would the child feel unsafe in the beginning? The reason why is because it was born vulnerable into an environment trusting, fully surrendered on its back with its hands and its feet in the air. Someone's going to feed me. Someone's going to put a roof over my head. Someone's going to keep me warm. That's mommy and daddy. So I'm trusting that mommy and daddy are going to love me, nurture me unconditionally, and support me while I go through this human experience. The problem is that mommy and daddy are still carrying around the programs from the family that are filled with insecurities and low self-esteem and rage and guilt and shame and all of those things. So then the child comes into the family, is imprinted by the programs from mom and dad, and then they don't feel safe. Maybe they were abused. Maybe they were neglected. Maybe they were abandoned. Maybe they were sexually abused. Maybe they were physically abused. Whatever it is, all of us have experienced that. Nobody is alone on this topic. And that is also the great deception and illusion, is that actually people feel that they're alone. How could you possibly be alone in your own suffering? There are 7.5 billion people that are on this planet that are all suffering because we have collectively and consciously agreed that it's okay to kill each other.
And again, this dates back thousands of years.
Thousands of years. This has been going on.
This isn't an American thing.
I'm not saying anything new.
Are you at a space of freedom? Are you at a space of always serene?
Yes.
Is the work? I mean, obviously you still have to do work, but
yes, I have to constantly remind myself to stay present. It's a practice.
Yeah, my buddy Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, is next to his bed last night. And
Power of Now. Be here now.
It's actually in there, and he was
yes.
Like, and I said, "Yo," I said, "You don't even have to read the book. It's all in the. I mean, you should, but it's all in the title."
Yeah, I mean, the challenge for us and for humans is to be present and to be aware, to be compassionate and empathetic for other people's suffering. It's not an easy place to get to, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I wouldn't be where I'm at today and be in this place if I wasn't confronted with my own suppressed emotions.
Yeah.
And I went through an experience about 6 years ago called the Dark Night of the Soul. And what the Dark Night of the Soul is when all of your suppressed emotions, not only from this lifetime, but the ones that are connected to the programs of my lineage, they all come to the surface at the same time. And it was the scariest, most uncomfortable, confusing, complex experience that I've ever had in my life. For almost 2.5 years, I was basically in fetal position on the floor, crying, screaming, yelling, confused, lost, couldn't go out in public. It was incredibly challenging. But every day I prayed, and every day I cried, and every day I searched, and I went out, and I broke through fears of asking people for help. That wasn't an easy thing for me to do back in the day, was asking somebody for help. But I needed to put a microscope on my life and understand why I was feeling the way that I was, because I needed to get out of it. I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And that comes back to what we were saying earlier. The big question is, well, do you care? Because I was at a point in my life where I thought I loved myself. I thought that I cared enough about myself to make the right choices, to make the positive choices in my life. And I wasn't doing that back in the day. So I had to put myself in check.
Put myself in check. And I think that's for me, that's when the work began, but it was wanting to self-evaluate. It was constantly saying, okay, let me reach what's going on here. I need to know what's going on. It started with me being a little controlling. It's like, what's going on? I need to know what's going on. But then it became addicting, right?
Yeah.
And I've just, I'm trying to get to where you are. So we want to get you there too. And at some point we're going to talk a bit about the process, right? Real steps.
Yeah. So, Buddha, when we talk about Vipassana meditation, I was touching on that a little bit earlier.
Vipassana.
Yeah. So Vipassana meditation is basically the meditation technique that Buddha created. And what Buddha figured out was that if he was to sit quietly, that's why 40-day water fasts, fasting. This is where fasting came from. That's Jesus and Buddha. We all know, right? Well, that's where fasting came from. What Buddha realized was that if he was to sit in an equanimous state, which means calm in the chaos, and observe the sensations in his body, that by the laws of nature, those sensations, if he didn't judge them, and if he didn't cling to them, if he just observed them objectively, that those sensations and those feelings would just naturally rise and leave the body. And to understand that, you have the 4 elements in our body. You have air, fire, water, and earth. If I was to take a balloon and bring it down to the bottom of the ocean and let it go, it's going to rise. The magma in the earth, when it heats up, it rises, just like the hot water in the earth. When the sun shines on water, it evaporates and it rises into the clouds, and then it falls down again. So that's what we are. We are air, fire, water, and earth. So by the laws of nature, if I just observe the feelings in my body, it's all going to rise and dissolve.
And that is Vipassana?
That's Vipassana meditation.
So what I'm hearing is you're basically just your eyes closed and you're just observing how you feel.
That's it.
You're not focusing on it. You're not trying to fix it. You're just observing.
That's it.
And it's positive and negative feelings that you're focused on.
It could be blissful, and it could be, what you would label as negative.
So is Vipassana just meditation as we know it?
Yes. Kind of it's the first.
Got it.
Meditation.
Right.
And now there's all these other meditations that come from that. But that's the original teaching.
Okay.
Is what Buddha brought to us.
I do a lot of guided meditations. I'll jump on YouTube. I encourage people to do the same. And one of them is like a 10-minute body scan, and it sounds like Vipassana. It's like you're aware, you're thinking of what you're putting focus on something on your body, right?
Yes.
All right. So I want to turn the conversation a little bit, because how does everything you're saying correlate to what's happening now, universally and even nationally, the sickness that we are seeing? To give us some insight and give us some hope. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it can't be more obvious today than any other time in the history of humankind. The division.
Yeah. But I never thought we would see this.
Well, there's a reason why we're seeing so much division right now. Is because I don't want to get into conspiracy theory type talk.
I always encourage it, though.
Okay, so I'll brush on it a little bit, but there's obviously people that are at the top of the food chain, that are manipulating and controlling a system, a global system that is in place, right? So we have a global system that is in place. It's in order, right? Things are in order in a certain way that was designed by certain people.
Very smart people.
Very, very smart people that are aware of why we're here on planet Earth. Okay?
Wow.
And if you can't see that, If you can't see that and you're quick to judge what I'm saying, the only reason why you're quick to judge what I'm saying and you're skeptical is because you don't have the information. Mm-hmm. There are some people who spend a lot of time researching and studying what I'm talking about, mm-hmm. and they're saying right now, he knows. Mm-hmm. And then there's other people that don't have the information, and they're going, oh, well, no, that's not possible. Why would people want to control us? Why would people want to organize some kind of order? For what? Mm-hmm. Why would they want to do that? And then what I say to them is, okay, well, let's look at the system. Let's look at all of the essential things that you need to function optimally. You need air to breathe. Mm-hmm. You need water to drink. You need food to eat. You need shelter. You need clothing. These types of things just to get through, your day, mm-hmm. and to live, right? Well, if you look at the food system and you have an understanding of the food system, you know that if you eat conventional food, you're being poisoned. Mm-hmm. If you're drinking water out of the tap, you're being poisoned. Yep. If you know what's being sprayed up in the air, you're being poisoned. Mm-hmm.
And this is common knowledge.
This is common knowledge now.
Right.
It wasn't years ago, mm-hmm. but now because of the internet, they made a big mistake. They created the internet so now we can all share information mm-hmm. with each other very quickly. Mm-hmm. But the bigger picture is this. There is no separation between you and I. We are one. Mm-hmm. One breath, one heart, one love. Now, why is that important? And why have we heard that over and over and over from different people that were, maybe looked at as enlightened beings or awake? Someone like Bob Marley or mm-hmm. somebody like the Beatles, mm-hmm. One love and all we need is love and all those things. Well, we really do need love. We all do really need to come together. And we need to really see the reality of why is there so much division? Why are they driving that? Right? Mm-hmm. Here's the reason why. And again, this is my own personal experience and information that I have gathered over the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. There has been an experiment that's been going on this planet for thousands and thousands of years. There are ancient civilizations on this planet. There's relics, and there's been some information that has been left behind that shows us that these places were real. Mm-hmm. Places like Lemuria, Atlantis, mm-hmm. Egypt is the closest one, right? Mm-hmm. The Mayans, these pyramids and these temples, right? But they disappeared. There was supposedly these cataclysmic events that wiped out these civilizations. Mm-hmm. Right? They talk about that now, right? Global warming, some cataclysmic event that's going to happen. Nibiru, there's talks of tidal waves and earth changes. Mm-hmm. All of the indigenous people, they talk about this time that we're living in. They're calling it the Great Purification or the Great Awakening. Whoa. If you listen to the elders in the Hopi traditions, they talk about this. They've been talking about it for years. There's writings on the walls in temples and pyramids all over the planet. And so what has been shared with me, because I've been looking into this stuff, is that this experiment here on planet Earth has been going on for a long, long time. And 5 times the spiritual battle between light and dark that happens on the global stage and also inside of every one of us, a spiritual battle between light and dark. We came to a planet of free will and choice. There's light and there's dark. You, me, and everybody listening, we have a choice. We can either go down the road of love mm-hmm. with ourselves, or we can go down the road of fear and judgment. The spiritual guides, the angels and the ascended masters and all these different light beings from all around the universe that we are connected to. It is our spiritual family. It's our family of light. Mm-hmm. They come to us in different ways to inform us and to let us know about what's going on here. This is the time for us to awaken, to remember who we are and where we came from and why we're here. And people are waking up to this truth. So we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to transform ourselves and this planet into what has been shared with me called a star kingdom. So we are living in a third dimensional plane here on Earth, moving from the third dimension through the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is all love. There is no fear in the fifth dimension. So what is being asked of us, what they're inviting us, our family of light, brothers and sisters, we have the opportunity to transform this planet and ascend into the fifth dimension. The only way that you can get there and I can get there is by letting go of our fears and our judgments about ourselves and each other. And that is the reason why you're seeing so much division on the planet right now, because it's opening up this conversation. Mm-hmm. So you and I can have this conversation. These people can listen to our conversation. They get to process this information, and then they have to decide what they're going to do with the information. They can either avoid it, they can distract themselves from it, mm-hmm. or they can open up to the possibility that maybe this information will assist them in liberating their own selves from their own suffering. I am not responsible for your suffering. Mm-hmm. Your mom and dad are not responsible for your own suffering. Your grandmother, your grandfather, your entire lineage. It is your responsibility to hold yourself accountable, to liberate yourself from your own suffering, and to walk this path of beauty. We all have a choice. Mm-hmm. The information is there. There are people walking on this planet that understand this and they live it. Every day I walk barefoot on the earth. I put organic, natural, healthy food in my body because it resonates and it's in harmony with what I am. I breathe deep. I sleep deep. I choose the words that are loving and kind. I try to find the empathy and the compassion within myself for everybody else's suffering. Because I understand the suffering of others because I've personally suffered. So I don't see division or separation between anything or anyone. But there's a system that is in place mm-hmm. that is creating division. And it is so in our faces right now. But it's there for a reason.
And it needs to happen.
It needs to happen to help shake us up, wake us up.
Yep. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I said the benefit of all of this, the silver lining is that this needs to happen. The dialogue, the conversation, the awareness, the awakening, the great awakening.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
You feel that?
I do. And
I get chills all over my whole body.
These are answers.
Yes.
Because there's so many questions we have that we ask ourselves mm-hmm. that you can't Google. You know what I mean? And these are answers.
Yes.
This is the work. This is the work I'm excited about. Even if I get one viewer or none, we obviously get a nice following, but this is so beneficial.
Yeah.
This is good work. We're almost out of time and I'm bummed out, but I want you to take a step back, mm-hmm. continue to talk about what you were talking about, and give people who are living at home, who are suppressing their feelings, who are living in fear, who are scared, mm-hmm. who listen to this and think, oh God, that's just too out there for me. What are some steps?
Yes, I'll make a suggestion.
Or a few.
I'll make a few. So simply, we're here to feel. That's why we're here.
Period.
This is why we came.
Not to make money, not to necessarily, just to feel.
We're here to feel, mm-hmm. right? So all you have to do, you have your inner child and you have your ancestors. Find a quiet place. Lay down in a bed. Sit in a comfortable chair. Breathe deep. Call to your inner child. Call to your ancestors. And ask, what needs to be revealed for me to evolve?
Say this out loud.
What needs...
No. You're telling them. Say it out loud. Lay in
what
bed.
needs to be revealed in order for me to evolve so that I can assist in the collective awakening?
Say those words. You're telling people to lay in bed, close your eyes, get present, and say those words.
Yes.
Say them one more time, please.
Call it in. I call in my inner child.
I call in.
Or you could say your own name,
Okay.
or maybe you had a nickname.
Okay.
So you want to address, connect, and give your inner child the attention that it deserves and that it wants. So you call to your inner child, call to your ancestors, grandma, grandpa, whoever passed, aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters. They're all with you. They're always with you. They're aware what's happening on the planet. And surrender to the feeling of your suppressed emotions. Invite those feelings to come to the surface, and to the best that you can, objectively observe them. Just allow them to come up. Be present with your emotions. Be present with the feelings, and look for what I call thought visions, or you'll remember experiences that you've had from your childhood. That's what this is all about. This is all about identifying what the suppressed emotions are from the traumas in your life. If you're dealing with any kind of anxiety or depression or low self-esteem or insecurities or whatever it is, that's where it comes from. It comes from your suppressed emotions.
A big part of me wants to say, what do you have to say to the people out there that say, I don't have any suppressed emotions and I'm fine and my childhood was fine? Because I've always told myself my childhood was fine. And I just realized in this moment, because I have to always read adages, like tell my adages to myself every day to keep myself in a good headspace. And one of them is to be confident. And apparently I have had some issues in my childhood that have not, I got some work.
Yeah, here's the answer. Of course, there's people that are going to be listening that are at the extreme end of that. They've been sexually abused, physically abused, they've been abandoned, they've been neglected, they've been bullied. Like it's really in your face. But what about the 7-year-old who had a favorite toy? That toy meant everything to that 7-year-old. They couldn't think about anything else at that time in their life. It was all about that doll. And somebody came and took that doll away. We're talking about feelings. We're talking about emotions. That is relative to a 7-year-old of a mother or a father leaving. Remember,
just as traumatic.
If that child has a traumatic experience with it, if they're hysterically crying and they go up into their room and it stays with them day after day after day after day, eventually, maybe they're not going to think about the doll anymore. But that 7-year-old at that time had a traumatic emotional experience. If it was not explained by an unconditionally loving mother and father, and that child processed that feeling and those emotions at that time, they're still holding on to it.
Damn. As simple as a toy being taken away. We're still holding on to it.
That's exactly right. When I've gone through this process with myself, I'm going to tell you this is the reason why I know this to be true. Because of the over 150 plant medicine journeys that I've been on and working in the Vipassana meditation technique, I sat in Vipassana meditation and I found that place that Buddha was talking about, equanimity. I was calm, non-judgmental, non-clinging, and I observed those emotions rise from my body and leave my body. And when they left my body, it was a picture book of my life. Of all of these experiences. When I walked in to Vipassana meditation, I have 2 slip discs in my back. My range of motion was limited. Pain in my hips, pain in my back, discomfort in my legs. When I would bend over to stretch, My fingers could maybe touch my ankle. 10 days after sitting in meditation, I could put my chest against my thighs.
Jeez.
And it has
10 days.
never changed.
From Vipassana.
I released all of the suppressed emotions from my body.
Right. This isn't you stretching or flexibility. This is you literally expelling Jesus.
Correct.
And this is where, something that's so important that you said earlier, and I have to repeat, is that if you don't do this work, this is where you get sick. This is where the dis-ease comes into play.
Exactly.
I mean,
right.
that's an example of how, you can feel the energy lift out of your body and then.
That's right. Full circle. This is also what happens in medicine ceremonies. Mm-hmm. You go into a medicine ceremony with ayahuasca. It shows you where your traumas are, or your judgments, or what the disease, or whatever it is, and you see it, and then you throw up, or you shake,
right,
or you sweat,
and
that's the emotion leaving your body.
Because we're all energy.
We're all. You got it, brother.
All right. Well, we're on the nose, dude. Wow. I'm thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining. And I always call them nuggets of info, but this has just been buckets of gold for me.
Beautiful.
And I really hope that you guys were able to benefit from this as well. This was lots of goosebumps and lots of connection. I can see your aura, which is really interesting.
Aw, yeah, that's sweet.
It's just true. So this is like, I'm in a space of gratitude right now. So thank you for being here. I'll say thank you 1,000 more times. Thank you for being here. Where do we send people to find out more information about you?
I actually just launched my new website. Okay. And it's iamericnies.com. That letter I, letter A, letter M, like I am. Uh-huh. iamericnies.com. And I'm on, Instagram and nies.eric and then Facebook.
And people that want to reach out for help, just take those channels.
Yeah, just send me a message.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I did, and here he is. He always says yes. Love on yourselves and each other. We love you. That's a wrap. We will see you soon. Oh, always do like and share this too. That's important. All right. Have a good one.